Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmasvarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Sritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu Namasri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukasvarupaya Swamine Tapaharini. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. So let us continue with our introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. I will draw from the notes of one of our outstanding scholars. His name is Swami Tyagishanandaji. He was for many years in our Bangalore ashrama, and he was known as a monk of extraordinary scholarship and a real embodiment of Tyaga and Tapasya. He was really Tyagisha. He was a great scholar, at the same time, extremely austere person, very, very austere. And he was such a scholarly person. It seems he started the Bhagavad Gita. And then, the introduction went on and on and on and on, maybe for months and probably a year or so. Then somebody said, Maharaj, कब आप करेंगे? अभी introduction ही चल रहा है. He was like that. I think only one book we have seen earlier. This is also because one of our Swamis had taken elaborate notes of his classes when he was a brahmachari, and somehow very recently this came out as a book. Otherwise, his one well-known text was Nardi Bhakti Sutras. I mean, for each sloka, several pages he has written. I mean, such references, that means 70, 80, 100 references for each sloka. So also it'll be like that. We cannot deal in such elaborate fashion. But then I saw his introduction, some of the ideas are very, very new and very relevant to us. So let us start. He says, the Gita can be understood differently by every reader. सबको अपने अपने तरीके समझ लेंगे. इसलिए because it all depends upon our own status as an अधिकारी. मेरा समझने के लिए कितनी क्षमता है, मैं क्या साधक हूँ कि नहीं, what is it that's so obviously it differs from person to person. So this is quite consistent with the psychological principle of a perception, according to which any new item of knowledge must necessarily be colored and understood and explained with reference to the previous mental content. मान लीजिए हम एक मानसिक स्थिति पे हैं, उस जगह से जब समझ लेंगे, जैसे नया कुछ आया कि पूर्ववत पहले जो है उसके अनुसार वही समझ लेंगे ना. You would have seen many times what we understand this world also, whenever we look at something new, immediately our state of mind clearly determines our understanding. Nah? So the spiritual benefit of the study of Gita also depends upon everyone understanding in his own life, or it's only then that will be able to perform his Swadharma properly. Innumerable commentaries have been written, and actually because many of the great personalities wanted to share their views, so all these represent how the needs of the times change according to that. And also if so many are there, it's good for us as much as possible. One can refer, one can infer, one can learn, and one can benefit. And also Maharaj clearly writes that the liberty of choice is the very essence of Krishna's teaching and has been considered in many of the stories in the Upanishads. Because that you clearly, many of you know, in the Brihadaranyaka, the Prajapati taught Devas, Asuras, and also common men with the same letter, and each one of them understood the teaching differently according to their being a particular kind of an adhikari. No, someone took it as damyata, some as datta, some as dayadvam. Same one letter the gave rise to so many interpretations according to their state of mind. Similarly, in the Chandogya Upanishad story of Prajapati teaching both Indra and Virochana, each one of them understood it differently, the same teaching. So, the same student can understand the same words differently. Not only that, as we spend more and more thought and time on anything, our understanding itself changes. Not only that, it changes from person to person. The same person, as we grow more in our intellectual and spiritual capacities, as adhikar changes, understanding also changes. So therefore, there is nothing to be, feel differently about or negative about if we find that our own understanding is changing compared to what we had thought earlier. So that is the very nature. So that shows growth, that shows depth, that shows your evolving. Only thing is we must understand whether there is any consistency, whether it is giving us, more and more insights, whether it is making us more peaceful, more oriented towards sadhana, more oriented towards understanding Gita in a true sense. These are all really the measures. So we should not be, because different acharyas have interpreted it differently. Maybe there is a genuine need. For example, Shankara interpreted it because he thought of a person, adhikari, as strong in certain things, lacking in certain things. At the time, there was so much of this Mimamshakas, etc. So probably, to uh, conquer that idea and bring about a change in society, he very strongly condemned all karma, etc., and very strongly advocated the principle of Advaita. So Ramanujacharya has his own idea. He thought that this is how it becomes very necessary for the age. So he developed more the idea of Vishuddha. So now obviously, each person has interpreted it in the way that is very necessary and depending upon the needs of the time, etc. So, in the Uddhav Gita, in the Bhagavata, says how their views differ because their mind has been clouded by the gunas of Prakriti. So, this is Bhagavan himself says in the Uddhav Gita, Yatha Prakriti Sarvesham Chitra Vachaha Shravantihi. So, according to their nature, the interpretations are various. Chitra Vachaha Shravantihi. Yatha Karma Yatha Ruchi. According to their life and taste, this is also another interpretation. So, the Pandits and their commentaries are not being based on their own spiritual experiences, but only on interpretation of words according to grammar or dangerous guides in spiritual life. And one should weigh them in balance of one's own spiritual experience before one accepts them as authoritative in spiritual life. So, interpretation by mere pandits, etc., they may be very good according to grammar, according to other the tenets of literature, etc. But essentially, whether they are beneficial for your spiritual life, how are you going to benefit? These should be the main considerations before reading any particular interpretation. So, again, Maharaj writes that, see, even choosing from the material available, we have to bear in mind the special needs, the time and place in which we live. That's why I said great acharyas have always adjusted interpretation to the needs of their generation. Each arya they all came with a big gap in their time of advent. So each did an interpretation according to the needs of the time. In fact, somewhere Maharaj writes, we also saw in the Dhyana Sloka, Sarvopanishadu Gavo Dogdha Gopal Randhana Partho Vassa Sudhir Bhokta Dugdham Gita Amradam. He says, no, one need not even say that. It's the essence of Upanishads. By itself, Gita is extraordinary, he says. One need not say that because it's the essence of Upanishads, it's great. No. By itself, he says it's a complete text. So it's even takes objection to that reference, saying that it need not be that way because It's by itself a complete spiritual text capable of leading humanity to its ultimate destination. So, a spiritually realized person of the modern age is a better guide to us of the present generation, even though acharyas might have suited that particular generation. So, naturally, obviously, the that is why the relevance, the interpretation of Swamiji and Sri Ramakrishna, they become extremely relevant because they are the really most modern personalities in times of their advent. So probably their interpretation would give us the best possible view of Bhagavad Gita according to the needs of the current age or the current time. So the if you look at the idea of the interpretation of Sri Ramakrishna, he says, what is the significance of Bhagavad Gita? It is what you find by repeating the word uh, Geeta, Geeta, Geeta 10 times. It becomes Tagi, which is same as Tyagi, a person who has renounced everything for the sake of God. You see, Tyaga also how he interprets. Thakur's interpretation of Tyaga is also wonderful. It's not mere giving up. He says, repeat the word Geeta, Geeta, Geeta 10 times. It comes Tagi. Tagi means Tyagi. And Tyagi means one who has renounced everything for the sake of God. It's not simply giving up home and roaming about aimlessly or then advertising oneself that one is a great Tyagi and all that. Someone who has renounced everything for the sake of God, he is a true Tyagi. So the lesson of Gita is, oh man, renounce everything and seek God alone. So, instead of reading all the 700 slokas, just is one interpretation. If we consistently bear in mind what Sri Ramakrishna says again and again, कई जगह पे वो त्याग की बात करते हैं. भगवान के लिए सब कुछ त्यागना यही जीवन का उद्देश्य है. So whether one is a householder or monk, one has to remove all attachment from the mind. त्याग तो ये भी कई जगह पे ठाकुर ने बताया, त्याग इज नॉट नेसेसरली ऐसे कोई नहीं, आप बाहर त्याग तो ठीक है, इससे भी जरूरत है अंदर त्याग. वो सबके लिए प्रयोग्य है. Everyone can do it. One need not be a monk, one need not formally renounce, but मनी मन आपका जब तक आप सब आसक्ति, सब बंधन से आप मुक्त होते हैं, उसकी पहले तो आपको आध्यात्मिक जीवन में आगे बढ़ाना ही संभव नहीं है, तो भगवत दर्शन और ईश्वर लाभ तो दूरी बात है. So that kind of detachment from the world, the mind should be purified, should be rid of all attachments. That is very essential for progressing in spiritual life. So it's a famous incident. Chaitanya Deva saw a person reading Gita. Another person sitting at a distance was listening and weeping. एक तो पाठ कर रहे थे, दूसरा एकदम इतना उनका अश्रु विसर्जन हो रहा था. चैतन्य ने पूछा, क्या आप समझ रहे हैं? डू यू अंडरस्टैंड? नो सर, I don't understand a word of the text. Then why are you weeping? The devotee said that when the moment I hear somebody reading Gita, I see Arjuna's chariot before me. I see Lord Krishna and Arjuna seated in front of it, talking. I see this and weep. देखो, कोई पढ़ रहे हैं, जिन्होंने सुन रहा था, वो सचमुच उसका जीवन सार्थक है. क्योंकि all the reading, all the part, parayan, etc. we do is in the small hope that we'll get something in that direction. But this person has got it fully. Listening to somebody else reading, he's weeping profusely. जब पूछा उनके बोल रहे हैं, हम जब भी सुनता हूँ, सामने दिख रहा हूँ अर्जुन रथ में बैठे हुए, श्री कृष्ण उसके उपदेश दे रहे हैं. That means he has completely got the whole of the real essence of Bhagavad Gita, and obviously is a very advanced sadhaka in that sense. So Sri Ramakrishna further explains, saying that the essence of Gita is to renounce everything and practice spiritual discipline for the realization of God. उन्हें विभिन्न जगह से गॉस्पेल से, कथामृत से लेके महाराज उद्धृत करके बता रहे हैं again and again. Again he says, speaks of the essence as renunciation and development of love for God and worship of God. किसी जगह पे, विभिन्न जगह पे कैसे विभिन्न प्रकार वो बता रहे हैं. And then Another page, it says, the Gita is the essence of all scriptures. A sannyasi may or may not keep with him another book, but always carries a Gita. Swamiji bhi unki wandering days mein, I think, had a copy of Gita and the that small Christian prayer book. Now, what is that? I think these were the two books Swamiji used to carry during his wandering days. So, there are two interpretations of the scriptures, the literal and the real. बता रहे हैं जो भी ग्रंथ की दो तरीका व्याख्या होता है, one should accept the real meaning alone, what agrees with the word of God. कोई पंडित्य की दिशा में नहीं है, जो भगवान की जो बोलना उस दिशा में लेना चाहिए. There's a vast difference between the words written in a letter and the direct word of the writer. कोई पत्र में कुछ लिखते हैं और सीधे बोलते हैं, इसमें बहुत फर्क है. The scriptures are like the words of the letter. The words of God are the direct words. I do not accept anything unless it agrees with the direct words of the Divine Mother. माँ स्वयं सब बता रहे हैं तब मैं मानता हूँ, नहीं तो मैं नहीं मानता. I'll just give you a real example. It's of course with great respect to Maharaj Ji. You know, Swami Ranganathan Ji was really a global figure and ऐसा कोई देश नहीं उन्होंने नहीं गया, इतनी भाषण दिए. So once we had an opportunity to print a small book and give it to some 2 lakh employees of an organization. बहुत फायदा हुआ. कोई प्रोग्राम की माध्यम हम लोग कौन सी दे रहे हैं. महाराज दिल्ली ते रहते समय, उस समय का महाराज जो अध्यक्ष थे, he had in on citizenship, they had brought out a very big book. What is that book called? Devashish? No. Huh? No. There was a very big book on. There were a series of lectures on citizenship, and they were brought out in the form of a very big book ultimately. So from there, some experts were chosen, and these were given. So one piece I read, I thought, what is in this? What Maharaj just said, I don't get anything in this. Simply somebody in house, somebody was there, some the son-in-law did like this, something. I did not find anything. Then I understood, when Maharaj used to get up and speak, it was not so much the words, his life, his personality. When with his life and his personality, when he spoke, those words were totally different. They made such a deep impression, and all those who would listen, who would attend, they would listen spellbound. So that's why Thakur clearly see the letters of a person and the words of a person are very different. So I only saw then, because I thought about it, I know that he was so much revered and respected. See, we ourselves have sat and listened at his feet several times. Whenever he would speak, he would inspire. So, what is it that? Why this is so ordinary? And why they are published also? I was feeling very disappointed. But then I understood, when Maharaj gets up on the stage and speaks, the power of his personality, the power of his life, that used to shine forth through those words, and that would give such a different impression on the listeners. So, Maharaj says, simply don't, Thakur says, don't go by the interpretation of Pandits or this or that. You should really try to understand what are the words of Bhagavan himself. In that light, if you try to understand, probably you will get more and more from the Bhagavad Gita. He says, so similarly, if you, Swami Vivekananda also has spoken extensively about Bhagavad Gita on several occasions. So he says, the Gita teaches karma yoga. We should work through yoga. In such concentration in action, there is no consciousness of the lower ego present. He who is one with the Lord through yoga performs all his works by becoming immersed in concentration and does not seek any personal benefit. Such a performance of yoga brings only good to the world. No evil can come out of it. Those who work thus never do anything for themselves, etc. So, this same lecture he says, uh, so the that is why the power of yoga, how you work. Yoga karmasa kausalam. What is yoga? Yoga is dexterity in work is yoga, says. If you work in a particular way, that is yoga. Otherwise, no, everything is karma. Everything is action only. Our sitting, standing, eating, sleeping, going here, there, everything is karma. But when does it become yoga? When it's done in a particular way, with a particular attitude, the particular orientation. Again, Gita has given several ways of doing work that way. All that is ultimately understood as yoga, and that will lead to a spiritual transformation of the individual. When the Gita was first preached, there was then going on a great controversy between two sects. There are Swamiji's words. One party considered the Vedic yajnas and animal sacrifices and such like karmas to constitute the whole of religion. The Mimamsakas were hell bent on proving that karma is all that you need to do. Other preached that killing of numberless horses and cattle cannot be called religion. The people belonging to the latter party were mostly sannyasins and followers of Jnana. They believed that the giving up of all work and gaining of the knowledge of the self was the only path to moksha. By the preaching of his great doctrine of work without motive, the author of the Gita set at rest disputes between these two antagonistic sects. Many are, see, so he says these were the two prevailing ideas at that time, because that's why Shankara took a very strong view on one side. One set was saying that do all your yagyas, everything, go on doing it, nothing else you need to do. That's all you have to do, and that's enough for your life. Because they never thought of transcendence, going beyond the senses. But another view was the view of the jnanis and sannyasins, that all this should be stopped. So Shankara took a very strong idea, very view that work should be completely given up. And unless you give up work, जब तक आप कर्म से संपूर्ण रूप से विरत होते हैं, उसके पहले आपकी ज्ञान संभव ही नहीं है. No knowledge is possible unless you give up work completely. Not only that, in his Vivek Chudamani, every second, third sloka, he clearly says, without sannyasa, nothing is possible. Even that far he goes. Because he wanted to emphasize the idea of giving up of work. Because why that? It was clearly understood those times, those who take to the path of sannyasa alone, those who are completely away from the society, where they don't have any bindings as to कर्तव्य कुछ भी नहीं है उनका, कुछ भी करना नहीं है. Only they are the people who can be free from work, the responsibility of work, and they alone could get the ultimate knowledge. This was a very clear view that he advocated again. That is because it had gone to the other extreme. So much was the emphasis on karma kanda and yagas and yajnas and nitya naimitik karma. इसके लिए यज्ञ करो, उसके लिए करो, ऐसे करके ऐसे बनाया था. So उन्होंने सबको एक he gave a big blow to everything and he wanted to wipe out the whole. So obviously without understanding, people thought that मैं ऐसे कोई चुपचाप बैठ रहा हूँ, तब तो मैं तो कर्म से दूर हूँ. No. कर्मेन्द्रियाणि संयमे यास्ते मनसा स्मरन् इंद्रियार्थान् विमूढ़ात्मा मिथ्याचारस्य उच्यते. Gita itself says. So merely physically restraining oneself is not being free from work. So in the other extreme, people thought that simply going away from the society, retiring to the forest, वन पर्वत में कहाँ चले जाऊं, बैठ बैठ के बीच बीच में काजा पीते रहूं, जो भिक्षा भी मिलता रहेगा, कभी कभी भंडारा भी हो जाता है, मैं कर्म से विरत हूं. No. So that's why that's why the relevance of Swamiji, who brought a very beautiful synthesis between these two ideas. He went on a भारत पर सारा भारत उन्होंने भ्रमण किया, देखा ये क्या कर रहे हैं इन लोग, क्यों बैठ बैठ के क्या फायदा है ऐसा. Then he brought, really again he gave a wonderful lift to this idea of nishkam karma, or selfless work, or he clearly said how unselfish work can uplift you and take you to a higher destination. इसलिए उन्होंने बोला इट इज पॉसिबल फॉर एवरीबडी. सन्यासी तो करेंगे ही, गृहस्थ भी जरूर करेंगे, करना भी चाहिए, करेंगे भी. Then because they will also really be uplifted, they will also progress in the spiritual life. इसमें क्या है? So he said that everybody has to work. No one can be free from work. Geeta also says, नहीं कश्चित् क्षणमपि जातु तिष्ठति अकर्मकृत् कार्यते हवशः कर्म सर्वं प्रकृतिर्गुणैः. Even for a second, one cannot be free from work. We all work constantly. No one is free from that. Is there any way? Actually, how you do it would really determine whether it is bringing you attachment or are you becoming detached. Sadisham cheshte svasya prakriti jnanavanavi prakritim yanti bhutani nigraha kinkarshati. Sadisham cheshte svasya. इतने भी आप प्रयास करो, आप बड़े ज्ञानवान हो सकते हो, लेकिन फिर भी because prakriti is making you do, you cannot but do. What will you do? Nigraha. What is the idea of pretending to not do anything? Because that will not work. Then he goes further. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hridaya sejana tishtati brahmin sarvabhutani yantrarudani maya. भगवान स्वयं आपके हृदय में बैठ के घुमा रहे हैं आपको. You are being whirled around by the Lord himself sitting in your heart. So आपकी मैं नहीं करूँगा कैसे बोलूँ? संभव ही नहीं. So Swamiji clearly said, that's why he brought this idea. Can you really orient your work towards a higher purpose? That's why he started such institutions all over the country and even in other places. And he said before that this idea, Atmano Mokshartam Jagat Hitaya cha. मुक्ति के लिए जरूर करेंगे, सबको प्रयास करें, सभी प्रयास करेंगे, लेकिन उसके साथ जगत का हित जुड़ जाए. कितनी सुंदर है. He thought that such a huge force simply sitting idle, not doing anything and living as parasites in the society, उसकी जगह पे सब हाँ समाज के लिए करेंगे. So you do everything. Of course, it's a huge struggle. It's not so easy because Thakur himself says, हाँ इसो कि अनासक्त प्रारंभ करते हैं, कहाँ से आसक्ति आके जुड़ जाए पता भी नहीं चलता है. Sri Ramakrishna says. That's why see the plain and simple fact is, whatever be your path, spiritual advance, going forward in spiritual life is not so easy. Whatever be your path. So every path involves tremendous struggle, tremendous effort, persistent effort, day after day, with tremendous nishtha and diligence. If you do, then only it is possible. इसलिए स्वामी जी कई जगह भी बताएं, नो योगा इज कंप्लीटली इंडिपेंडेंट ऑफ अदर योगास. आप जो भी योग में आप प्रारंभ करें उसके अंदर दूसरी तीसरी चौथा योग आ ही जाएगा. एंड इफ यू डू दैट वे, दैट इज वेयर यू आर गाइडेड, दैट्स वेयर यू आर कंप्लीटली प्रोटेक्टेड ऑल्सो. मान लीजिए आप कर्म तो बहुत करते हैं, आप कर्म योग करना चाहते हैं, लेकिन उसके अंदर आप विचार नहीं रखेंगे, व्हाट एम आई डूइंग, एम आई रियली सर्विंग, एम आई रियली निस्वार्थता मेरा है कि नहीं, am I really unselfish, am I doing that way, that vichara is the jnana part of it. इतनी प्यार से करते हैं, जिसकी आप सेवा करते हैं, you pour your heart in love and adoration to the object of your service, that is bhakti. and then इतनी एकाग्रता से करेंगे, वो तो उसकी राजयोग है, ध्यान है, meditation है. So every yoga there are parts of the other, but लेकिन predominantly that which is seen outwardly, that is given the name. If it's a predominantly karma oriented, it's called karma yoga, but there will also be others. So Swamiji did not say that आप endlessly आप करते रहो, ऐसे ही फंसते रहो, you get caught, you get attached. No, he said you may start, but slowly, if you are very alert, if you have that विचारशील बुद्धि हो आपका, आप हमेशा ऐसे करते रहें, then slowly you will be able to get over, and slowly you will know why you are working, where attachments are coming, how to get rid of them, how to be purely more and more unselfish, and that will lead to spiritual evolution of the individual. So he brought a very beautiful harmony between all these yogas. And he said, yes, one can do, but at the same time, there should be other parts also. So mother also clearly says, Ghodir kata moton korbe. Whether you like or not, just as the clock is ticking, does the clock say that no, I will not tick for a few minutes? Then what will happen? It will show wrong time. As long as the hands keep on ticking, the seconds hand, then only the clock is showing the right time. Is it not? It says no, मैं 10-15 मिनट चुप रहूंगा उसके फिर चालू करूं. Then obviously it will not show the right time. The same way, you say whether you like or not, you must perform your spiritual disciplines every day. He says, yes, Swamiji ne, somebody said, why? Because people like Master Mission and others, initially they had some doubt what Swamiji is saying. It was not what Sri Ramakrishna said. Even Yoganji and others tried to oppose initially. But then Mother clearly said, no, whatever Naren does is correct. Can anyone do Japan meditation 24 hours? That is why he has started all that. She was in complete agreement with what Narendranath Swamiji did. But she said at the same time, whatever you might do, but you must set apart time for your spiritual disciplines. Then only you will understand, मैं कैसे काम किया, मेरा मन कैसे था, मेरा कितने आसक्ति जुड़ गया. All that, how would you know? Unless you sit, unless you meditate, unless you find out for yourself. So Mother was very emphatic that all these should form part of one's overall scheme of spiritual discipline. So unless you do that, it will not happen. So although the two different opinions were there at that time, it was necessary, it's essential in Gita where all these have been harmonized. All the four yogas have been. So, and also it's very necessary to understand the idea, what is this work without motive? Is it absolutely aimless, purposeless work? How can any work be done without any motive at all? Definitely there will always be motive. And also without, some also say that without understanding pain or pleasure, then people who are very cruel, they simply kill others, they don't feel any pain. Are they doing motiveless work that way? No. So, all these need to be understood very clearly, because there is a higher purpose. There is no motive, there is no selfishness in a lower sense. मेरा स्वार्थ, मेरा सुविधा के लिए. So, that egocentric work or self-centered work, these are to be avoided. It is without motive. Unselfish means for a higher cause, for a higher purpose. In an altruistic sense, or in the sense of offering to God, Ishwararpana Buddhya. So many ways, attitudes are shown in the Gita by which one can work. So although Gita, Sri Krishna clearly says, Karmanyavadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, he did not mean that you would work haphazardly or without any purpose or anything. But, it has to be understood what is the real meaning of that and how it can be done. So Arjuna also, he killed Bhishma, Drona and others in the battle, but there was no selfishness. His self-interest was completely sacrificed. And this was how he could do. Although he did so much, there was a motive, naturally establishment of dharma. Victory in the war was establishment of dharma, triumph of dharma or adharma. So in the process, whatever happened, he did, but without any selfish motive or without aiming for himself in any way. So where is it the Swamiji says, wherein lies the originality of the Gita, which distinguishes it from all preceding scriptures? Why Gita is so unique? Why Gita is so popular? It is this. Though before its advent, Yoga, Jnana, Bhakti, etc., had each its strong adherents, they all quarreled among themselves, each claiming superiority for his own chosen path. पहले भी ज्ञान, योग, भक्ति सभी था, पर सब जिन्होंने मानते थे मेरा पति श्रेष्ठ ऐसे बताते थे. They always used to claim that their path was the best one. So they all quarreled. No one ever tried to seek for reconciliation among these different paths. It was the author of Gita who for the first time tried to harmonize this. He took the best from what all the sects then existing had to offer and threaded them in the Gita. उस समय का जो अवेलेबल था सब उन्होंने लेके ऐसा कुछ बनाया गीता के अंदर, एक सुंदर माला की तरह उन्होंने गाथ लिया. So he made a beautiful garland of all these ideas and presented it for the benefit of the mankind. In fact, he goes further, but even where Krishna failed to show a complete reconciliation, it was fully accomplished by Sri Ramakrishna. It was from this there was a deliberate attempt at harmony, but actually it's not just the teacher himself, it was only for the text, because Sri Krishna's life itself was an example of great harmony, and it was not his intention to really bring about a harmony or anything like that. He was a perfect embodiment of the perfection of human personality in all its aspects, and his teachings must therefore be an expression of perfect harmony in his own life. So, perhaps in this sense, he says that even beyond Sri Krishna's attempt in the Gita, it was Sri Ramakrishna who had really, even to some extent, completely accomplished the idea of harmony. It's a little difficult to normally decipher or understand this in a particular way. But actually, whatever Swamiji did was, according to whatever Thakur taught him. See, that is why, in perhaps, a very famous incident in Sri Ramakrishna's life, जब अपना घर पे वो एक बार वैष्णव धर्म के बारे में बात कर रहे थे. When he was talking about the Vaishnava Dharma, the 3 tenets, नाम पे रुचि, दीप पर दया, Vaishnav Seva. And he said, taste for the Lord's name, and then compassion to living beings, Jive Daya. And immediately went into Samadhi. And when he came down, he said, ये क्या है? छी, जीव कीट के समान एक ऐसी दूसरे जीव की दया दिखाते. नहीं, दया नहीं है, शिव ज्ञान से जीव सेवा. Looking upon man as an embodiment of God and serving this particular aspect, because Swamiji was present as Narendranath at that time. वही कक्ष में स्वामी जी उपस्थित थे. उस समय सिर्फ नरेंद्रनाथ थे, लेकिन उन्होंने बोला, टुडे आई हैव हर्ड समथिंग न्यू, शुड गॉड गिव मी एन अपॉर्चुनिटी, आई विल प्रोक्लेम दिस बिफोर द होल वर्ल्ड. सारे जगत के सामने में इसका प्रकट करूंगा. व्हाट इज दैट? दैट इज व्हाट probably Swamiji referring to as where even Sri Krishna could not completely reconcile it. It is Sri Ramakrishna who did it, because you see, maybe the condition of the society was such there was not so much of a need for this type of an altruistic work. साधारण से घर घर पे ऐसे कोई आते हैं, अतिथि को खिलाना, कोई भूखा आदमी कोई आ रहे हैं उनका खिलाना, दिस वाज अ वेरी नॉर्मल थिंग. There was no need for that kind of a tremendous altruistic work in those days, or philanthropic work. But Swamiji, when he went on a Bharat Parikrama, he saw a country which was so rich at one time, was mired in poverty and illiteracy and so on. Then he saw that there is a new sanction, there is a new scope for taking this idea of Karma Yoga to a different level altogether. एक कर्मयोग की एक दूसरी एक ऊंचाई पे ले जाने के लिए बहुत बड़ा सहयोग उन्होंने देखा. So, because then itself he had said, if we get a chance, I will establish and show this. So, that idea, the service of God in man, is something definitely a fine-tuning of whatever is there even in the Bhagavad Gita. So, see, Gita, looking upon the whole world, samam sarveshu bhuteshu, all those things are there. The idea of seeing, oneness everywhere, that kind of ideas are there. But then, serving in the aspect of work, in the act of service, bringing the idea that you are serving God, is clearly something, a very special emphasis or interpretation which Swamiji and Sri Ramakrishna have brought about through that. Generally, one thing is, largely in Gita, probably, of course, Gita also has given every type of scope, because he says, Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya adhyatma chisa nirashi nirmuma bhutva yudhyasva vigatachvaraha. So, he says, you offer everything to me and then you do. Yat karoshi yadashnashi yadjosi dadasi yattapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushu madarpanam. He says, you offer everything to me, to God. Whatever you do, you do. That's one interpretation. And then offering everything to me, thinking about me, mai sarvani karmani sanyasya, adhyatma with a spiritual intent you do, that he has given. And otherwise, in other places, samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishtantam parameshvara. There all, everywhere he talks about the Advaitic idea, that when you see oneness, then your idea is totally different. But here, what Swamiji, according to what Sri Ramakrishna has said, the interpretation that he has given is so beautiful. Whereas, even rank beginners, you don't have to be an advanced spiritual aspirant who has done intense sadhana. Even as a beginner, you can begin by this idea that I would like to see God in whatever I do, whomsoever serve. That way, this becomes a spiritual discipline, a method of sadhana. So, obviously, this is a clear, very clear, particular direction which Sri Ramakrishna and Swamiji have given. Probably this would contribute in a greater way to this idea of harmony, which Swamiji talks about. Probably this looks like, because this is a very, very specific, clear interpretation, which at least directly a very unique contribution of Sri Ramakrishna and Swamiji to spiritual striving. And more so because for anyone, even with that attitude, one need not clearly see God everywhere. It need not be an experience. It is not the experience of oneness and then you serve. Even as a beginner, you impose that idea, you try to absorb that idea and start from where you are. Initially, one might not see, it might not be my experience, but I am trying to understand this is the attitude with which I should serve. मैं ऐसे ही करना है, यही मेरा शुरुआत है, यही मेरा प्रारंभ है. करते करते एक दिन, क्योंकि पहले करते समय तो सबको आपका दूसरे की जिसको सेवा कर रहे हैं, उसके अंदर जितनी तरह बुराई आपको तो दिखाई देगा. You will feel all that, you will feel disappointed, you will feel cheated, you will feel hurt. So many things might happen. But if you persist, if there is nishtha in what you do, and if you continue to do that way, it's quite possible that you might end up, as you more and more try to see the God in whom you are serving, obviously you will also see the God in yourself. So it's possible that there will be an evolution at the individual level, because the more and more you cannot see God outside unless you got inside. That's why in Devo Bhutva Deva Majit, in puja the main idea is you become a Deva and then you worship Deva. So it's the personal purification, the personal evolution is so important. So in that attitude, what happens? You constantly evolve. When you constantly try to see God in others, when you serve, constantly because of that attitude, you are also evolving, and you slowly understand your own divinity, and that is how you progress in spiritual life. And you will see that way also with that attitude, if you can begin. And then this again, the many people quite often we're trying to interpret the idea of nishkam karma. People try to say that I will be the like Janaka. Everyone cannot be like Janaka. He was no doubt he was doing nishkam karma. He was running a huge kingdom without the least attachment. But then it's also true that he was such a great jnani, and that is how he could practice it. So it's not enough to say that we can be like Janaka, because they are so rarest of the rare examples, and he was so deeply established in Jnana. There's a very famous story told about King Janaka, how he was so unattached or detached. Seems probably in the with Ashtavakra or somewhere he was attending the scriptural class. तो बस वहाँ उनके आश्रम के ब्रह्मचारी भी बैठे थे. तो हल्का से बारिश हुआ, Then in the middle of the class, the Brahmachari immediately went out. He had put his copy in for drying. So नहीं बिक जाए उसके उठा के उन्होंने रख के फिर आके बैठा. But during the class, someone came and told something in Janaka's ear. He simply waved him off. So at the end of the class, Janaka left, and then this Rishi told the student, "You see, you are all supposed to be Tyagis. Just because a small loin cloth is getting wet, you gave up the scriptures and went for that. Do you know what happened? Somebody came from the Raj Darbar to tell Janaka that Mithila is burning. He said, let it burn. And now he has gone to discharge his duties. So that was the level of detachment which Janaka had. That is because he knew that it's all perishable. It has got to be done. But what was important? What was important with your time? So he was like that. He was so detached and so composed. So it is not easy, but then a true Nishkam Karmi is neither to be like a brute, not to be inert, not heartless, is not tamasika, but a pure sattva. His heart is so full of love and sympathy that he can embrace the whole world with his love. This is what Swamiji says, about Nishkam Karma. A true Nishkam Karmi, how he should be. Because if you Nishkam means without any kamana, animals kill other animals. Sometimes, it's just there is no purpose. Then there is a wall, there is something else. Are they all Nishkam then? Nishkam means not that. It's not merely purposelessness. That's why Swamiji says is neither to be like a brute, nor to be inert or heartless. His heart is full of love because it's full of sattva and he can embrace the whole world with his love. So, again, according to Swamiji, there are special characteristics of the Gita or reconciliation of the different paths of dharma and work without desire. How it is Nishkam and how it is dharma. The reconciliation are the two special characteristics. The disinclination of Arjuna to fight did not arise out of overwhelming predominance of pure sattva guna. It was all tamas that brought on this unwillingness. अर्जुन युद्ध करने के लिए नहीं चाहता था. ये क्या इतना सात्विक हो गया, मैं सन्यासी बन जाऊं, संपूर्ण रूप से सब त्याग के I will dive deep into meditation and attain samadhi. What is that? No. He was not afraid like any coward. Oh, I saw so much army, I became डरने लगा. No. But his problem was his dear and near ones, the love for them. That was the attachment that was binding. If they were killed in the war, I would have destroyed my own kith and kin, my loved ones, my acharyas, and etc. This kind of a weakness, this kind of a tamoguna was in the mind of Arjuna. Yet distinct, and he was clearly came with an inclination to fight. But the tamoguna often, comes in the garb of sattva. अंदर तमोगुण है, लेकिन बाहर दिखाने के लिए नहीं मैं युद्ध नहीं करना चाहता हूँ, युद्ध की जरूरत नहीं, मैं राज्य जरूरत नहीं है, मैं सब छोड़ दूंगा, मेरा क्या फायदा है, इसमें कौन से भरा है राज्य लेके मेरा क्या होगा. That was not the kind of statements he was making as he was full of sattva. But was that not the case? But in reality, it was all full of tama. Arjuna, it came in the form of daya. As he always preached that you should not decry man by calling him sinner, but you should draw his attention to the omnipotent power that is in him. In the same way, Bhagavan speaks to Arjuna, it does not befit thee. Thou art that Atman, imperishable beyond all evil. Having forgotten thy real nature, you are thinking yourself as a sinner, as one afflicted with bodily evils and mental grief, thou hast made thyself so. This does not befit thee. Yield not to unmanliness. So, he says, this, in fact, Swamiji is somewhere, this is the real essence of the whole Gita, this sloka, he says, Klaikyam masmagamapata naitattvaiva padyate Chudram Miredo Balyam Tekto Tishta Parantava. This unmanliness, this weakness of heart doesn't defeat you. Get up and fight. Because he says, Why are you thinking about yourself as a small little personality or individual? You are that undying, infinite Atman. Where is death for you? Where is death for others? What is going to die or what is going to perish is only this body, which anyway would perish today or tomorrow. Why do you think that it's all death and everything will be over? And why do you think that you alone are the cause? You are just only a nimitta. Nimitta matram bhavasya pasachin. If not you, by some other nimitta they would die. But go and perform your duty and become a great hero. There is in this world neither sin nor misery, neither disease nor grief. There is anything in the world which can be called sin. It is just fear. That's what Swamiji always used to say. See, the fear referred to is the fear of doing wrong and not the fear of death or the pain in the fight. Because here Arjuna was caught in the dilemma between right or wrong. Whether killing my relatives that it is right or not, that was his dilemma. Not that because a few days ago he had defeated the entire Kaurava army, all the single-handedly in the Virat Parva. He was alone. All were Drona, Karna, everybody was defeated in that single battle. So he was really truly a brave warrior. But this idea, whether that it is right or wrong, killing the dear and near ones and elders, was it right? This was his dilemma. So he says, know that any work which brings out the latent power in thee is punya, and that which makes the body and mind weak is verily sin. This gives Swamiji's idea. Shake off this weakness, this faint-heartedness. If one reads this one sloka, Klaibyam Masmagama, he gets all the merit by reading the entire Gita. For in this one sloka lies embedded the whole message of the Gita, he says. Because, here he clearly says why one should fight, why one should not be afraid. What is one's real nature? You are that infinite Brahman. So don't worry about all this. Don't become. So, this again and again, Swamiji, everywhere he says is Abhi, fearlessness. Don't be afraid. Fear, being afraid, that is the one weakness. There's no other weakness in a person. So again, this is what he would say always. So with that idea, he clearly says that again and again he exhorts everyone to be fearless, and that's why he was so fond of this particular sloka, which he says gives you the entire essence of Gita. See, all through the book, that the one idea is non-attachment. Remain unattached. The heart's love is due to only one, to whom never changes, that is God. Don't make the mistake of giving the heart to anything that is changing, because that is misery. The Lord is the only one who never changes. So, that's why he says, give your heart only to one. This is the idea of non-attachment. So, remain absolutely attached. Give your heart only to God, who is the only unchanging thing. And because he never changes, and loving God means that's your real purpose of life. So we'll continue very beautifully. Maharaj has written very elaborate. There's a lot more. Let us see. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.